everybody.
Thanks.
Then
Thank you.
hi, everybody. Is anybody on with me? Am I on with anybody? That's the question. I think I'm on. Hello. Hey, Jody, am I on?
She's off. Should I?
No, she'll text me. Hey, everybody, this is Mary Fete. I'm just making sure I'm on live, so just give me a few minutes and we'll get started. I'm live. Okay, good. Let's just give it just 2 or 3 minutes before we start talking. Is anybody else on with me? It's hard for me to see the comments now that this Facebook page has changed a little bit. Anybody else on? Jody, do you see anybody? Hi, Becky. Hello, everybody. This is Mary Fete. I think most of you know me. I am the Executive Director for the National Foundation for Ectodermal Dysplasias, and I'm happy to have an opportunity to talk to you this evening. So first of all, I want to express my deepest thoughts and prayers to those of you on the West Coast, those of you who have experienced those terrible fires, and also those of you in the southern states that have been bombarded with all that heavy rain and the hurricanes. Boy, oh boy, all this on top of COVID, it must be so challenging for you. The fires causing such severe respiratory problems, and I imagine most of you couldn't go outside for several weeks. My hope is that things are clearing up just a little bit. So anyway, our thoughts and prayers are with you. I know it's really been a challenging time for you. So take care and reach out if we can do anything for you. So, we've been settled in school, hopefully all of you by now, whether you're virtual or you're live or a combination of all of the above. And I was just wondering if anybody had any comments. Let me know how it's going. Any suggestions for other parents? No. It's such a tough time for parents, to decide whether to send your kids to school or not. Sometimes the school district makes the decision for you, right? Even in our own family, geez, Tim, how many? So we have, oh, by the way, my husband, Tim, Dr. Tim, he's here with us tonight, too.
Good evening, everybody.
I should have introduced him up front. So we're just going to take a few minutes to chat with you. So anyway, even our own family, of course, we have a lot of grandkids, but, some of them are in person, some of them are virtual, and some of them are a combination of both. And it's causing parents to have to make really tough decisions whether to send their kids to school or not. And, it's tough. And I think you just have to make the decision that's best for your family. And of course, if your kids are live, you really want to make sure that the schools have taken the best precautions to keep your children safe. And the CDC has made some recommendations for kids going to school. Tim, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so you can go to the CDC website. The other site that I threw out the last time we did a live chat together has an incredible amount of great information, is healthychildren.org. And it's a website from the American Academy of Pediatrics. And if you just Google healthychildren.org, the website opens to a page that has a green strip right down the center of it and answers all kinds of questions, particularly about COVID. Now, it's great because it's a source of information for almost anything parents would have questions about on their children, not related to COVID also. But because COVID is such a big thing now, the center strip is all COVID. There are sections on, going back to school, going back to sports, et cetera, et cetera. Schools, I wish we could, put all of our kids in a bubble and let them, get in school and be totally protected by their bubble. You just have to make sure that your school is following recommendations from the CDC, and kids are wearing masks, that their desks are being distanced. Now, interesting, we talk about 6 foot distancing for routine social distance issues. The evidence is that the younger the kid, they might get by with as little as 3 feet of distance, as long as they're wearing a mask. And and there's great evidence from Europe that the schools that are doing cohorting of children, so that having 4 kids or 6 kids at a desk, that they stay with the entire day. They do their classwork together, they eat lunch together, they go back for classwork in the afternoon, and then if any one of those kids gets sick, they quarantine that group and test the other kids. But and most often it keeps the other kids in school. The other thing that's interesting is that even though kids have more COVID virus per unit of spit and snot and all those gross things that kids, have spewing from their bodies,
And they share with others.
and they share with others, you would think that that they would be great transmitters of COVID-19. But all the evidence at this point is that the younger kids in particular, but the studies on kids in K through 12 indicate that there's been very little transmission in the schools. And when there has been transmission over this last month or two, it's more often than not from the teacher to the kids, not from kid to kid. And I think that's a bit of a surprise to all of us. But there are really remarkably few infections that are being documented in the schools at this point. And when they do the case investigations of those infections, they actually trace them to other sources in the community, not to school. However, the important things are, what's in your community. If your community is a big hotspot and that's 5 times the national average of transmission right now, it's probably not a great time to be in school or any place with groups. Frequent hand washing. The Academy of Pediatrics recommends that all kids older than 2, wear an effective mask. And again, the social distancing. But again, the younger kids in the primary grades might get away with 3 foot distancing in of their desks in school, as opposed to the 6 foot, which is again a bit of a surprise.
So, whether kids are in school or they're not in school, and all those tough decisions we have to make as parents, there's all this stress involved, right? I know. So we're staying with my daughter's family to help out in St. Louis because we've got a bunch of little ones here. And so my daughter's kids are going to school, and she's worried about them getting COVID at school. My son's kids, he's got 4 little ones, and they're virtual. So Erin, Chris's wife, is stressed because she's homeschooling 3 kids and has a 3-year-old. So Tim's been picking up the 3-year-old to help out there and picking up kids from school. It's what we do, right? We work together as a family to make it work, but no doubt everybody's stressed. And I'm sure that many of you are stressed, whether you're parents or not, and just individuals trying to focus and to cope during these incredibly challenging times. And so I think all of us are tired of being inside, or tired of social distancing. We miss our friends. Our kids can't play normally. That creates a huge burden of stress. And I think we just need to know how to cope with that stress, whether it's getting outdoors and getting some exercise, making sure you get plenty of sleep. I guess that's an easy thing to say since my kids are all grown, but take care of yourself, eat well. And then of course it's really, really important to know when you need to get help. And I think we have some resources. Tim mentioned the Academy of Pediatrics website, but there are resources for us. There's resources in your community where you can reach out and get some help if you need it. And then again, just trying to stay together as a family. I know a lot of people have their, like they call their little safe circle. So maybe there's a couple parents in your neighborhood that are being as safe as you, and you can trust that they're being as safe as you. You might be able to, get out in the front yard, set your chairs apart and visit a little bit. That works too, and it might help relieve some of the stress. Now, as we get into the colder weather, we're not going to be able to do that. So, we're on Facebook and everybody's Zooming with everybody else. So, we're finding ways to cope virtually. Of course, we hope we don't do this forever, but we're finding ways to connect virtually or in our yards. So, I would encourage you to. This is like a broken record. Tim said it, follow the guidelines of the CDC. It's imperative that we protect our families right now. I say at least 6 feet distance. Wear a mask, and I know we have a blog, and Jody's going to post that blog site here in the comments that talks about different kinds of masks that families have found to be, most tolerable, the kids are more likely to wear. And some families commented on some irritation the kids had from their mask or that you may have had from your mask. And one of our dermatologists, Dr. Cindy DeClotz, she has some recommendations for that. So please read that blog. And of course, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And I know a lot of us are now suffering from really dry, chapped hands. And so make sure you have your favorite moisturizer. I carry it around in my pocket so that your hands don't get so dry that they crack and bleed. So, take care of yourself, follow the CDC guidelines, and make sure that the people you interact with are also following those guidelines. Now, Dr. Tim, what about sports? I've had some questions about kids playing sports, and I'd like to address that now.
So, broken record, there's a section on kids and sports with COVID-19 on healthychildren.org. So I recommend that you go there for the specifics. There are great recommendations on that site for what you need to prepare before practices, what types of things to avoid doing at practices and games. And so great suggestions at that site. The other question that we have is we're learning that for those kids who actually do get COVID, even if they're asymptomatic, may have some increased risk of heart inflammation called myocarditis. And so it's really important that if your child is participating in sports and test positive for COVID, that you not allow that child to return to sports without being cleared by the child's pediatrician or family physician. And the guidelines on return to sports are dependent upon how sick the child was when they had the COVID, the age of the child, and passing or not passing a screening for symptoms of heart disease. But at a minimum, even asymptomatic kids should not return to sports for at least 2 weeks after having recovered from any symptoms of COVID. And some kids actually require an electrocardiogram and or a visit with a pediatric cardiologist to clear them. So if your child or any kids that you're aware of have had COVID and are engaged in sports, please make sure that that they are not going back to the sport without being cleared, and that the coaches and administrators of the sports are aware of the guidelines for return to sports. So that's really important. But again, healthychildren.org has information on that.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions or comments? I can't really see the comments, but, oh, please reach out if you do have, I'm sorry, I just minimized my screen. Please reach out if you do have any questions. And, you know, here we are, we're ramping up to flu season, and so we want to make sure, that you get your flu shot, okay? So it's really important because, man, oh man, if you get the flu and you get COVID, it's really a bad setup for your children, for you. So I got my flu shot, so please get your flu shot this month. September or October is what they're recommending. So, Tim, what about routine children's vaccinations? Should they keep getting those now, or?
So that's an area of significant concern, is that in some states there as many as 60% of kids haven't gotten their routine immunizations over the course of the past 9 months. And so it's really important that you know that your doctor's offices should be safe. Virtually every doctor's office in the country has taken great strides to protect patients from picking up COVID in their offices. And so if you have a question, call the office and ask them, you know, what things they do to avoid exposure in their office. But please go in for your routine vaccinations, not just, you know, influenza. All of the routine ones are important. They're for diseases that used to kill, you know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people per year. And we just don't see them anymore because we've been immunizing like this for the last 70 years and protecting people from it. But we've seen the ugly face of measles come back in the United States over the course of the last few years. And that particular disease is much more contagious than COVID-19 and much more likely to get it from somebody if you're not immunized. So please, you know, talk to your doctor's office about whether or not your child's up to date on routine immunizations. On the flu vaccine, it's doubly, triply, 1,000 times more important to have the kids immunized this year against influenza, because you're probably aware that we are not going to have a vaccine for children against COVID-19. And so, you know, kids are going to remain at risk for COVID-19 for a longer period of time than adults do. And so really important that you do everything possible to protect them from influenza, because if you get both of those on top of each other, it's really dangerous and or deadly. And it's important, once the COVID vaccine is available, that if you have a child or any other person in the family that's at great risk, but particularly children, because we aren't going to be able to immunize them, it's really important that everybody around that child gets the COVID-19 vaccine to make it less likely that the child is going to acquire it. Now, again, we alluded to it before, kids overall tend to be less sick. They're more likely to be asymptomatic. They're more likely to have a mild illness. But there are some kids who get very sick, and there's a particular syndrome in children where they have serious life-threatening disease called multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. And so, although it's thankfully reasonably rare, we don't want to have any of our kids at risk for having that disorder, because it affects multiple organs of the body, including the heart, primarily by affecting the blood vessels to all the important organs. So the best thing that you can do besides washing hands, wearing masks, keeping distance, is to maintain routine immunizations. And please, 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 everybody in the family get the flu vaccine.
Right, and you know, Tim spoke primarily about kids, but you know, you adults?
Yeah,
It's
sorry,
really
I'm a pediatrician.
That's okay. It's really important that we keep up with our preventative care and talking to your doctor. It might mean managing a chronic illness via telemedicine. It might mean that you talk to your doctor about their precautions to see if it's safe if you go into the office. What we don't want to happen is we don't want all these other things to exacerbate while you're staying in the house doing the right thing, but make sure you follow up with routine checkups. I would check with your dentist. I talked to a dentist, Dr. Wright, and I said, oh, I'm afraid to get my routine care, but I don't want, he said, you know, the dentist office has taken such precautions that we don't want you to neglect your preventive care because the impact down the road is going to be so much worse. Now, there may be circumstances where you wouldn't go into an office. So again, check with your doctor, check about the precautions, and for, you know, at least if you have a chronic illness or something, high blood pressure that you need to manage, make sure you talk to your doctor because almost all offices now are scheduling telemedicine visits. So please keep up with that. Now, we did have a question, Tim, if ectodermal dysplasias, individuals who are affected by ectodermal dysplasia are at increased risk for COVID. And we talked about this a couple of months ago. I think it's fair to say we really don't know if they're at increased risk. Right. But what we do know is that many of the syndromes are more at risk for respiratory infections and severe respiratory infections. So we don't know this. I don't have any evidence to support it, but you might be at risk for a worst case of COVID. We don't know that. We haven't collected any data, but we don't want to chance it. So, you know, we really want you to follow. Did we talk about the CDC guidelines? We want to make sure you and your families are safe. Tim, do you have any comments on that?
No, other than what Mary said, is that the presumption is that that you know many of the ectodermal dysplasia syndromes are associated with increased risk of underlying respiratory problems, and so you're at risk for getting worse infection with COVID and or worse infection with the flu. So please do everything to protect yourself against either.
Right. So I'm sorry and I apologize. Everybody knows I'm not the Facebook guru that most of you are. I can't see the comments. So I do want to tell you that, you know, Halloween's coming up, right? And it's one of the kids' favorite holidays. And, you know, it's heartbreaking to tell the kids they can't go trick-or-treating. I know we have a house full here that, you know, we're not going to go trick-or-treating. But you know what? There's a whole bunch of things you can do that would be really, really fun. And I can't see the comments, but maybe Jody could text me. Does anybody have any ideas for Halloween that involve social distancing, some things that might be safe, yet just as much fun for the kids? I do think that is it the CDC that said don't trick or treat, but if you could put little bags of candy at the end of your driveway without any social contact. But there's tons of things you can do to make the holiday just really fun. I know here my daughter's going to have a special event for a couple days. They're going to have special meals and they're going to do, you know, some fun activities. You can have a pumpkin carving contest in your family. You can decorate your house or your apartment. You can do a scavenger hunt in your house. You can do a Zoom with your family to do, I guess, virtual trick-or-treating and treats, maybe a special meal. Dress up in costumes at home and have a party, a movie night. And there's some recommendations on the CDC site, cdc.gov. They have tons of information on COVID, but they also have suggestions for families. And I did forget to mention that the NFED has a dedicated COVID page with information on it. It may be a little difficult to find because we've got so much information on the website, but if you just go to the search bar and type COVID in, you'll go right to the page. And Tim, is there some recommendations on the Healthy Kids site?
So I'm just laughing, broken record. So there's a specific button on healthychildren.org that is dedicated to Halloween during COVID, and it has great suggestions on things that you can do for your family and friends to have a great time and still be safe for Halloween. So I would check healthychildren.org and hit the Halloween button for
Fair.
that. There was a question that came through that Jody sent to us back on the question about vaccines and is there a COVID-19 vaccine available yet? And so, you know, evidence is that we're getting very close, and probably at least one of the vaccine makers and maybe two or three will have a vaccine available potentially by the end of the year, maybe sometime in November or December. But you have to recognize that the vaccine will be limited in quantity initially, and so every state has teams that are meeting, deciding how to distribute the vaccine in the most safe and equitable fashion, so that the high-risk responders, medical personnel will end up with the vaccine first because they're in constant contact, and even the type of medical provider is going to be tiered. And then nursing homes will probably be the next target, and then high-risk individuals. And I would, indicate to your family's physicians that that you think that they should consider individuals who are affected by ectodermal dysplasia as a potential high-risk group. And hopefully get in on one of the earlier tiers of vaccines, because we are not likely to get the entire population of the United States immunized before at least next summer. So I really would, particularly if the affected individuals in your family have had chronic symptoms with asthma, wheezing,
right.
pneumonia, respiratory symptoms, or any other serious organ involvement, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart problems, kidney problems, make sure that your doctor thinks of you guys as that high-risk group.
Okay, so, we talked about Halloween, but, the holidays, all the holidays are coming up, right? Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we would all just like to have big family gatherings and be like we always love to be at the holidays. But unfortunately, we got to get through this. We got to keep our families safe and put off those big family celebrations. And, it's well worth it if we're healthy and we have the opportunity to be together either next year or hopefully sooner. So, avoid the big family gatherings, follow the recommendations. Now, I have something really important I want to talk to you about. This may be one of the most important things about tonight's call. So, we've all been impacted by COVID, and many of us have been impacted financially. Some of you may have lost your jobs, you may have wage cuts, you may have your hours reduced, and you may not have the funds for that necessary dental treatment. And I'm here to tell you tonight that we do have some funds for kids that need dentures, and I want you to apply if your kids need dentures. The process is very simple. Jody's going to post the application link in the comment section, but we really want to get those kids those dentures when they need them, and so we are really here to help you. So please reach out, contact me if you have questions, but we do have some money for treatment. And that's not just for kids' dentures. We can fund cooling products, cooling vest, and we have been very fortunate to have some wigs donated to us. And Jody's also going to post that blog. And so we would like to give these wigs away. So if you or your family member needs or wants a wig, the process is going to be very simple. You're just going to go to the Sign Up Genius link and pick which wig you want. So those wigs are, of course, for individuals who are affected by ectodermal dysplasias, but we want you to know that we can help you with some of this treatment. And if your kids need dentures, they need dentures, they need them, and we really want them to get them this year. So if you have financial burdens or you just don't think you can spend the money on the kids' dentures right now, please reach out. We're here to help. The application process is very simple, and if you need help with it, we're happy to help. So talk to your child's dentist and see if it's time to do dentures now, if you need a cooling vest. And please, please check out the blog on the wigs so that if you want a wig or any of your family member needs or want a wig, we would love for you to have them. So I think that's about all I have tonight. And it's really nice to have an opportunity to connect with you. It's really, I wish we were like on a Zoom where I could see your faces because I miss everybody not being able to go to conference. And so, again, we may do a few more chats like this before the end of the year. And if you don't have any questions, I'll say goodnight. I'm going to check my phone here in case Jody's emailed me any questions. And I don't see any questions. So I do want you to reach out if you need help with treatment. If your child needs dentures, cooling vests, or anybody needs a wig in your family, we're here to help you. So that's all for tonight, and have a great evening. Remember the CDC guidelines, and we posted some resources in the comments for the CDC site and some of the other resources we had, and also the healthychildren.org. No questions. So good night to everyone. Take care of yourself, be safe, and God bless.